Hello and welcome. Today I want to talk about overloads. So why do we have an overload on a machine and how does it work? Okay, so on most single phase or three phase machines we have a small overload built into the machine which trips when the machine is overloaded. So the way it does that is as the current passes through the overload in the machine, the overload itself will warm up. Now if it's grossly overloaded, say double the actual allowable amps, it may trip in a few seconds, and that's a gross overload. And if the machine is only drawing just slightly above the allowed overload level, so it might be 10 amps, if it's drawing 11 amps it could go for another half an hour before even tripping. So that's the time it takes for that motor to get hot. And the point of the overload is to try and predict how hard the motor is working and protect it from burning out. So how do we know when a machine is being overloaded, and how do we reset the overload? So on most satellite machines we have a digital display which shows the current that is being drawn, and often will show also the percentage of the machine's capability. So if you're running at 100%, it should run indefinitely without a problem. And if you're running at 110%, you could probably run a whole hour before it trips out. But you do need to keep it below 100% for safety purposes. So in this case we have a Satellite 400 and it has a manual reset overload. Some machines these days, the Satellite Generation 4 has an auto reset. No user intervention is required. As the overload trips, it will cool down, and when it's ready it will reset itself. It's a great feature to save having to reset the overload yourself. So on this machine, it's a Satellite 400, it has a manual reset overload here. So let's see what happens when the machine is grossly overloaded on startup. So I'm going to start this machine and we're going to stall it so it can't start. I'm going to put weight on the head, lift the handles up, give the machine a start. So you can see here that 247 volts, 0 amps of course because it's not started yet. And let's see what happens. So you can see it's stalled, it's 45 amps, over 200 amps, 200%, and you can hear the click and the display went out. The machine cannot be started and the machine has overloaded. So how do we reset the overload? Let's have a quick look at that on this machine. So here we can see the overload. You can see it has tripped and the button is all the way out to the end of the clear boot. You can hear it click. So here you can see we have the overload reset again. We have the light on the LCD display lit back up again. We have the light between the start and stop button. And if you find the machine won't start, but you do have the LCD screen lit up, the overload won't be tripped. So there's one little trick to know. If the overload is tripped, there won't be a display either. But if the machine won't start, most likely you'll have the emergency stop pressed in. You can see there's a light here. There's no light between the start and stop button. The machine's not ready to go. So make sure you twist to release the emergency stop, and you should have a light between the start and stop button. So it's a very short overview of overloads on the machine, how they work and what they're used for. Thanks for watching.